Welcome to the Pratham AI Hackathon podcast. We're diving into the intersection of technology, education, and social impact. Our guests today are two remarkable individuals who have dedicated their careers to driving positive change through innovation. I'm Tara Prakriya, and I now have the privilege of introducing our guests, Will Poole and Rich Tong. Will is the managing partner of Capria Ventures. He is a longtime supporter of Pratham, an entrepreneur and venture capitalist focused on the Global South and Gen AI. He has been at the forefront of pioneering tech solutions for emerging markets for 2 decades. Notably, during his tenure at Microsoft, Will managed a double-digit billion-dollar business you probably have heard of called Windows. His passion lies in using AI to create meaningful, sustainable, and profitable impact, especially in underserved communities. Will is also someone who tried to manage me for a few years at Microsoft. Rich Tong brings a wealth of experience to the table. His tenure at Microsoft included the launch of Windows 95 and being a key leader in Microsoft Office. By themselves, those are pretty impressive credentials, but it turned out that was just the start. Beyond Microsoft, he co-founded a computer vision company that was later acquired by Lear Corporation. Amid the pandemic, he co-founded Restart.us, or Restart Us, initially motivated by driving efficiencies in personal protective equipment, and now with a broader view of policy and technical assistance to Washington State, small businesses, and other communities. But that's not all. Rich is also an author. I'm a big fan of his succinct book, The Marketing Playbook, that distills his years of experience. So, Will, Rich, I'm going to start with the question that's on everyone's mind. How can AI be a game changer in addressing educational and employability challenges in resource-constrained environments? Could you share some examples you've seen?
Well, this is the reason why we're hosting this hackathon for Pratham, and I'd say that the answer has not yet been discovered fully, but I think the potential is very much there, and it's something I'm personally super excited about. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. Maybe the first one is personalized skilling. It is possible using AI today very easily to understand the capabilities of, be it a child or a young adult or even an old person like me, understand what they know and what they don't know, and to develop very, very inexpensively a personalized skilling or training program for them to teach them something specific that they need to know. And that can be done now at scale, at really very little cost, and delivered in at the need of the learner. So if it's a kid who's trying to get past the eighth standard exam, and there's really just some particular area that he or she is stuck, you can imagine a personalized math tutor that runs on their phone, being able to say, hey, you're stuck in this area. I know why you're stuck because you've answered a bunch of questions for me. I can see what your problem is. And let me now customize something and help you get through that. And then you can move on from there. So that'll be one area. And we're actually seeing that kind of personalized skilling happening at scale already with some of the companies we've invested in India. We have not yet seen it run locally on a phone. But I think that can happen, and Rich probably has some ideas on what technically needs to happen for that to be possible. But that would be one area. We also see the area of just overall conversational math tutoring, for example, or language tutoring can happen, again, either currently via predominantly text, but it can move with GPT 4.0 with the multimodal stuff. You can imagine a conversational math tutor that would work with a student over their entire year or the entire educational career. And Saul Khan gave an example of that in a video that he released along with OpenAI just a couple of weeks ago, just showing the potential for that. So I think that those kind of ideas are in the future for delivering positive, really amazing capabilities to people right where they need it.
No, I totally agree with you, Will. It's a great equalizer, really, because otherwise you don't have the teaching skills and so forth in these low resource economies. So it's really a game changer, which is why we're doing this hackathon, to level the playing field even more quickly.
Yeah, I think equalizer is a great point, Rich. And I think that it's also going to help students, that are behind catch up. It'll help students that are ahead be engaged and not be bored. It can do all those things in ways that those of us have been. I've been looking at ed tech since I think Tara actually got me going on it. Something back in. Let me see,
That would have been 2005.
2005, Tara. That's when you got me into really getting deep in ed tech. And so I've been pretty passionate about that for a long time. And the idea of personalized learning was, right there back then, but we just couldn't ever implement it practically. And now AI can do that.
So what are the unique challenges, though, Will, that you see as either challenges or opportunities for implementing AI solutions in emerging markets? And then, Rich, I'd like you to think about how we could potentially evolve tech in developed markets or separately or maybe the same.
Well, let me start by saying that this idea of personalized learning and addressing the student is the obvious thing, and it's one that everybody can address because we've all been students at some time. So it's easy to build stuff for ourselves or for who we wish we were as a kid. But I think the other thing to think about is teachers, and I think that tech that can help teachers be more effective is maybe even more important, because I'm a firm believer that teachers are still vital to success in any kid's education, or even a grown-up's education. And so if you can build tech that can make the teacher's job easier, they can take routine administrative things off their plate, do something as simple as grading quizzes, who knows what it is, but anything that addresses the life of the teacher and helps make them better, that alone would be tremendously powerful in an emerging market, in particular, where you have a very high student-to-teacher ratio, where your teachers don't get enough training and support. So that would be another thing to think about, in addition to personalized learning, is supporting teachers.
So, Rich, what's different or the same when you think about these types of solutions in developed markets?
Well, I think we have some great. I think we have some great news, because everyone is pushing hard to get to what's called on-device AI, and AI that's much smaller. So the days of needing 1.2 trillion parameters and a huge network connection are really ending. I have been working on a bunch of projects where that AI that Will talked about can actually run on today a desktop and soon a phone. So the great news is that all the push that Apple and Google and everyone has to make AI possible for the more developed world is just going to help us tremendously. Well, what does it mean? It means that, for instance, you can imagine a mid-priced phone with an AI that knows you and that takes you through your entire career, right? This is your personal AI. You have it, it's curated, it knows how you work. I think that's a very exciting idea for people who want to learn new things. And for instance, this person really likes graphical things. I'm not going to recommend a bunch of equations, right? So you can see just how the interplay between the low-cost client and all that data on the server is really going to work well. And I just want to reinforce Will's point that anything that helps teacher productivity, which Pratham is very good at, by the way, is a huge win, because people are not coming out of this loop anytime soon. That personal instruction is still going to matter a lot. So this idea of running on a phone, running on a tablet, that is all well within, 36 months. I mean, it's fast.
Let's talk about that for a minute, but sort of how fast, because it is always, technologists always overestimate the speed at which things get there, but maybe underestimate how big of a deal they are once it happens.
Right.
But do you really see evidence, Rich, of things? I know you've been playing with some small models, so are you seeing things that are tunable and running on a desktop today?
Absolutely. Maybe we'll do this at the Pratham show, but I'm actually right now personally working on an app that we're downporting to 5.3, Microsoft's great model. It's a 4 billion parameter model, and it runs well in an 8 gigabyte VRAM machine. That's like a game changer, right? I mean, that kind of device is $500 or $600. It's not expensive. And you can see what's happening is that everyone is building all this AI stuff into their chips. So just to give you an example, the amount of performance Qualcomm has added in the last 24 months is literally like 10x. Right. So yeah, I think there's a big push right now.
$500 or $600 is still out of the range of price for a low resource environment, but your point is that might take, again, 2 years, 3 years at most for Qualcomm and others to push that into the lowest cost silicon that's going to show up on a $100 Android phone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you and I understand very well how these cost curves work. So once all that is amortized out, those chips are going into $200 phones and $200 tablets. And so, yeah, I think we have maybe 5 years becomes prevalent. But the key thing for Pratham and everyone else is to have the software that's ready for these eventualities, because those things will be a real game changer. So it'll take some time, but we need some time to write stuff. It's not easy.
Well, this is certainly where I have to make the plug of I'm recording this on a brand new Copilot Plus AI PC from Surface, where we are running those models, on the client.
Exactly.
And it might be a little bit large for a phone at the moment, but not by much. I think it'll get there sooner than 36 months, Will. Actually,
I mean,
kind of
we're all optimists on that front. That's good to hear. And again, as you said, Rich, it's going to take time to figure this out. So if it's on a slightly more expensive device that maybe only goes to teachers for a start, or that's fine. And then it goes from there down to students over time.
Just imagine, I totally agree with you, Will. Just imagine us doing a really great teacher's assistant that's tuned for every teacher in India. That is like a game changer already, before you even deployed all the students. Like, how's he or she work? What really works for that class? We can learn all that stuff in a way that will work in a low resource environment. So yeah, it's very exciting.
So we've talked about on device and we've talked about low cost. When we think about emerging markets, are those the two major factors?
I'll bring another factor in, which is language. And that's probably maybe even more important than anything else, right? So let's try India with 22 national languages that I think of, which all of them are on the currency, maybe 18, I don't know, but there's, and the number of dialects beyond those 22 are in the hundreds, right? And while there are many English medium schools, and many parents aspire to send their kids to English medium schools, but still the bulk of kids don't go to English medium schools. They go to vernacular schools. And also if the kid particularly is one that's struggling, maybe hasn't been as advanced as others, you need to address them in the language they understand. And that's the most amazing thing about where we are with Gen AI right now, is it can learn not just pick your dialect, but also the sub-dialects of that, right? So that transference from the knowing the major languages down to the dialects and sub-dialects and regional dialects is all coming very quickly. And you could imagine, again, putting that into one of these smaller tuned models. And it doesn't need to be burdened with knowing Spanish and Chinese. If all it knows is English and local dialect, then you can throw away all the rest of the learning and just have that part of language being there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think fine tuning is going to be the key, don't you think, Will? That there will be models that will just work in a particular province and a particular language set, because why do I need to carry all of it? So that's one of the tricks.
So someone that can write, poetry in the style of Yeats and also, recite Stephen Hawking's view on the relativity, at the same time is not necessary. If what you're really optimized around is focusing on, K through 8 math in Maharashtra and some sub dialect, right? So. No, I think that the pruning and tuning is going to be key, but I think language will be another game changer, right?
I like your emphasis on language, and I guess the other one would be potentially analogies, or what kind of examples are being used. Many of those are cultural too, not just the language itself.
My son, who is not known for his sporting abilities when he was young, failed a math test one day because when he was, I don't know, 3rd or 4th grade, because it asked, all the analogies were in baseball, and none of us care about baseball, and he didn't even know about how baseball worked, and he was asking math problems based on baseball. It didn't work out so well. So you can imagine that taking developed market analogies of teaching math down to a kid in rural Tamil Nadu, they're not going to understand those analogies at all. So I agree.
Yeah. Well, and just a hat tip to Microsoft and Phi 3, which has shown that if you carefully curate a good synthetic data set, you can actually get very good results. And I think one of the key things that needs to happen, to pile on to Will's comment, is where is that corpus of all the Indic languages that is carefully curated, that understands the analogies and so forth. So that's sort of the Achilles heel, I think, Tara, of this stuff, is where does the data come from? Make it high quality. And what we're learning is a smaller high quality data set is better than surfing the internet. Just doesn't work as well.
I think
The rich-
Google is demonstrating that trying to get answers about how do you make cheese stick to pizza out of Reddit is not ideal, or maybe even anything out of Reddit is not ideal.
Well,
Yeah.
that one was actually a super interesting one because, certainly there was a lot of press around, was it a joke or, what exactly happened there? But apparently the context was someone was trying to photograph a pizza. And so, it kind of made sense to use non-toxic glue for that particular situation. But wow, context, super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think, and Rich, to your point, where are the corpus of Indus language translations and things? I'm pretty sure they're there, right? And I think that there's a Kritan, is that the name of the one that's being trained specifically on English, on Indic languages right now, with some fanfare and a bunch of money behind it. So there's a couple of LLMs that are being built that way, but I think that again, it's going to be the micro-tuned, really well focused LLMs that can then move more quickly into the lower cost hardware, and that's going to be key for low resource environments.
This is also
So-
definitely key. Go ahead, just to
I was going
finish
to say,
on that.
Rich, your background for this is actually incredibly relevant. As I understand it, you're one of the first product managers for Microsoft Excel.
Mhm.
So, from that history and rich data background, what do you have as advice on how we think about what the data corpus is and actually just trying to curate that?
Well, I think that I just want to agree with Matt that there are corpuses coming out. The key question is, and this is a lot about the open source community, I think key things that Pratham can do to sort of seed those things and be the holder of it are the key things right now. There's a lot going on, and obviously in IIT and other places. So the question is, is this set, for instance, well tuned for students in low resource economies? I'm going to guess they're going to be tuned for people in Mumbai, because that's sort of the first thing you do, right? So I can easily see a Pratham data set that's really designed for the places that you are in, that is very custom and tuned, and then we just let the open source people do their magic. Because once that's available, then it's really easy to move forward. Because thankfully, 5.3, Llama 3, they're all open sourced. Right? And I think the amount of innovation in India is, we're just at the beginning. And it's really a question of these models are coming, and let's get the data sets together, and then we can build some great systems.
Super. I'm going to change the topic just a little bit to the folks who are participating in this hackathon. Will, with your leadership in Capria Ventures and your advocacy for AI, what advice would you give young entrepreneurs looking to leverage AI for social good?
We use a lot of, we run a lot of fellowships within Capri, and we now actually have developers on fellowship programs working at Gen AI with us. And the reason why they do this while they're getting a master's in AI at the moment, and the reason why they join us is because getting real world experience on your resume really changes the game when you go to apply for a job. And so I think that applies to any student. If you have the ability to go and pick a domain that you get passionate about, go and learn everything about that domain and build something, and you then have that to show, that's way better than anything. And you do that over time, by the way, not just a one-off thing. So if you're going to use this hackathon to get focused on a given problem and then say, okay, I'm going to keep learning about that domain over the next 6 or 12 or 18 months and build a couple different things and fail at some of them, but keep learning. And be able to show that when you go into an interview or show it on your resume, that's super powerful. And I know that's the thing, is any employer is going to look for somebody who passionately got into a problem, figured it out, stubbed their toes a couple times, made some more progress, learned some stuff, worked with some smart people, and got something done. And so that's, I think, the best thing for young people to do.
Rich, could you give us some advice for the participants in this hackathon?
Oh, I think, this is an amazing opportunity to try and to just try things. I mean, Will and I have been lucky, we've been to PCs, mobile, cloud, and really fortune favors the bold on this. Take on a big project, see if you can do it. I love Will's fellowship idea and I think this hackathon is so key, because why don't we just tackle a big problem? Instead of, some SQL Server database connector thingy, let's go and see whether or not, as an example, we can collect every Indic language database in the world and create a central resource for it. Because I was just doing the search beforehand, and there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of them, but there appears to be no curation source. you have to read what they are, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of work to be done right now. And I think it's amazing how when you try a large language model, it just sort of works. And so there's so much discovery, don't you think, Will?
It does, but you just said something, Rich, that's really important. Is being big and bold, and I think one of the things that plagues Gen AI right now is what I call thin layer innovation. And we see startups coming to us saying, "Hey, look at this really cool stuff we built. Oh, how many people built that over what period of time? Oh, 3 of us working nights and weekends for the past month, and it's awesome. You should write us a big check." Like, well, if you 3 can do that over a month, nights and weekends, I'm pretty sure that somebody else is really established in this space can do really well. And so I think that picking a really hard problem and getting maybe a couple different people working on it over not just this hackathon to kick it off, but then following up and continuing, right? That's what's really going to create some innovation. So the hackathon is really the beginning; it's not the end. And I think that's what I would be excited about, is taking a really big problem, taking one piece of it that you might prove that you can get done, but showing how much further you can go.
Super. And I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Will. Thank you so much, Rich. And good luck to all the participants.